No, suing?
I should just tell them.
I'm gonna call the meeting to order. We don't have to do a pledge, I don't believe, because this is a workshop. And we're here today to discuss the position of town manager and how we want to fill this job. We had a brief discussion at our last workshop in December. And Mark brought up the idea of a project manager rather than a town manager. And so we're just gonna I'm gonna let Mark start off with his idea. As uninformed as it is.
Naturally, I'm waiting for the insight of all the rest of
Yeah,
it.
so why don't we start there, Mark, and you give us a Reader's Digest version, what you
Okay.
see.
I looked at the job descriptions as we have them now and realized that we did have like a tension that the town clerk description said the town clerk does not manage the town manager, and the town manager description says they don't manage the town clerk, so it's kind of equilibrium. So what I had done is I'd come up with, actually, I called it the town operations manager. And I wrote 2 job descriptions that were largely based on what we have, but just mildly tweaked, so that there was more emphasis placed on the administrator job. And actually, I think somebody else might have come up with the idea of a projects manager that was even more defined than mine. I think somebody else came up with that. So I had come up with some drafts of what I had done, which was mildly tweaking that gave more power to the administrator and less to the operations manager, and focused it more on operations. Now, this is a little off the topic, but reading some of those descriptions that Aaron and Melanie came up with for those other towns, the town administrator descriptions are much more powerful than ours. They're much more definitive. So should I hand out what I wrote for the 2 for you guys to look at, or?
Well, if you'd like, and then just hit the highlights of it, if it's, you can, sure.
Okay,
So the 2 from the other towns, Randy Sneed from DOLA sent those. We didn't create them.
okay.
And there's nobody linked in on Zoom?
No.
Okay.
What do I do here? Oh, I think I have both descriptions. Yeah, just take one of each of these. And they're both descriptions as I modified in them, and then I will do the highlights here. So much paper here.
While we're spreading that out, I want to thank you guys for all, stepping up and doing what needs to be done to keep this place
Yeah,
operating.
just keep them all to yourself,
Thank you.
We don't need them.
Trying to figure out which ones are.
No, just take one, and it's got both descriptions in it, and hand the rest over.
Okay, I got you. Oh, yeah, give me back that.
You're not happy about it.
I think before we start with, I want to hear from Neil
Take one of these.
and Melanie
Just
and
take
Aaron
one and pass the others.
about,
Thought you meant take one of each one.
No.
Take one down, pass it around.
I want to hear from the town staff about, what they think what we need in that office in terms of managing the town. So I'm gonna start with you, Neil.
Yeah, that's it, put me on the spot. I don't know for sure everything that is done in that office. I know there's a lot of project management, there's a lot of grants, other issues that go on. Of course, there's keeping up with the municipal code as far as enforcing it or making sure they're up to date or relevant to our community. So whatever's getting done in that office or needs to be done in that office should be spelled out in some kind of job description. And then if it's too much for that person to handle, it could be shared between someone else or maybe another position created to take some of the load off of project management or zoning. There's a lot of zoning rules and regulations they have to be certified at. You've got them required to be certified as a Class A driver. So they need to be up to speed on their Department of Transportation rules and regulations, making sure that we in the field that use the equipment are following the rules and regulations. So there's a lot of things in that office, I think, that's fine print and underlying requirements and rules and regulations that a lot of us aren't privy to. So I don't know what all the ladies have going on. I know they're trying to take up what he had going on, trying to figure out what processes and things that need to be worked on or fixed or projects. So I'm not aware of everything that went on in that office.
My question, Neil, was with what you're doing, and I'm definitely very aware of DOT requirements and all that, because that's the industry I was in. Some of those things that you know that the town manager has been responsible for, is there anything there that you think that, within your knowledge and abilities to pick up the slack, if you will, should you need to, or has to be done, and then I'm just thinking, do you have that kind of talent?
Well,
I don't know.
I am around talented on all kinds of diverse information and processes, road and bridge. I'm retired military. I've just been in the safety field in the military and outside of that. I've done some building and zoning, not zoning, but building warranty type things. So you got to know the codes for some of that, but I am not certified in any of those capacities. A lot of that, you need training, you need certain qualifications, education, certifications. So, I think that's part of the problem in that office. You try to get somebody new up in there and they got to get spun up. They got to get all them certifications and get trained. That's overwhelming. There's a lot there to do.
Do you have a CDL?
I do.
We require the town manager to have a CDL. The two requirements, really the tough ones, are the CDL. It's even harder now. It's a 4-day deal and it's more expensive.
It's a month deal.
Is it a month?
Yes, sir.
Is it 1 day a week for 4 weeks? Is that what it is?
It's a class that's usually 2 weeks long.
Yeah.
And then, it's just a class.
Yeah.
And then you got driving skills that you have to perform, and then you have to go, and get a certified person that's gonna give you that license that tests you. So it's certified tester. And that takes maybe a day or two, depending on what you can get lined up and who does it, and where it's gotta be done at.
All right.
So, thanks.
Can I ask,
Go ahead.
when, in talking to our former town manager, he said Neil can run Parks and Road Division, so I don't need to do that anymore. What is your reaction to that?
Mainly, I have been doing it since I've been here, and the town manager just kind of oversees it like supervisor and giving me direction on what the board wants done, problem areas or infractions in the codes and rules. Also, he took care of the inspections usually from the SURSA inspectors. Sometimes I'd assist. Also, any complaints that would come from the public or safety issues out in the roadways or streets, parks, whatever the case may be. So I have been doing the managing of the streets and parks with his oversight and direction.
So in hiring somebody new, do we need to make that a big part of what his job description would be if we?
Well, I think whoever's there does have a lot of input from you all as the board members, the public, the different committees that meet, the park committees, the building and zoning committees, your planning committees, because you'll do the planning on how things want to be in this town or need to be in this town, things that get fixed. And the project management, of course, affects the streets and the parks and our work and our equipment that's available. So yes, I think they're the communication person between me and y'all, the public, and the rules and regulations. I mean, if I took more of that on, I'd have to go to more meetings.
We required, the town manager to have a CDL because we felt that he or she would be driving equipment with snow, a big snow. I don't know that Caleb ever did that.
He did come out and help a couple of times. He did not run equipment that needed the CDL. He ran skid steer, he ran one of the backhoe.
Yeah.
Or the little plow truck, which does not need a CDL.
So the question is, If we're gonna put somebody on a machine that does require a CDL, it could be your responsibility because you're over those people to make sure they've got it and they're up to date or whatever. The town manager position, doesn't really need a CDL, do they?
I would think.
They don't, but somewhere in the office, they have the CDOT license.
Right.
And they get the information from Department of Transportation on requirements, training, renewals, how many hours we put in the machines, whatever they're asking, it comes to them. So that's where your communication has to be.
That data has to be collected here
Yeah.
and then shared with you.
Yeah. Managed CDLs and like the DOT requirements, but don't have a CDL.
Yeah.
Because we don't have a truck that's C.
We have 2 dump trucks with air brakes. That's
Okay,
what
air brakes, that's-
requires the CDL. Yes, sir.
Okay,
Can I ask a question?
Yeah.
How many of the other folks in the town that work with you have CDLs?
One other besides myself, Mike. Nobody else has a CDL. And that was the reason I think Caleb and his predecessor had the CDL, well, not only to know the rules and regulations, try to stay on top of that, but be a backup, a spare in case we didn't have anybody here. You got people on vacation or in the hospital or out with COVID or flu or something, you gotta have somebody try to jump in and spot.
Could Connor or Christopher get their CDL?
They could, it's gonna cost a lot of money and probably a month's worth of
Time out.
out time. And there's a couple of them that don't want it, because when you have a CDL, your license is more under scrutiny. You get a ticket even in your privately owned vehicle, it goes against your CDL license. It's more points. You're watched on other lists and rosters, so you cannot self-medicate. You get caught on drug tests, then you could lose your CDL. And it could be just for regular flu medication or something.
At this point, are you fully staffed?
We are. We've had more in Streets and Parks Division this year than we've ever had. We got 4 full-time, including myself.
And then you have summer,
No,
no summer help?
not yet. It ain't summertime.
Well, I know, but you have openings you have a position for summer help.
I believe there's room in the budget for summertime help.
Cause it used to be Christopher, but now
Mm,
he's full-time. He was originally gonna move.
He's a good hand and glad
Yeah.
we can keep him. And
it is rough.
so, question is, do you need summer help?
If we have 4 full-time staff, probably not. I mean, it's always nice to have that 5th person because there is a lot of grass work, weed work.
Yeah.
Tree trimming, watering, the more trees you guys put out, the more water I gotta get done. Fertilizing, cutting, mowing. And we don't just mow the parks, everyone thinks that's all we do. We have all the open spaces to do too, along the roadways, our right of ways, even along the sidewalks. That's our responsibility, so there's a lot of mowing to do.
Okay, well, we're kind of drifting off the issue. We can talk about getting you more help in the summer, for sure.
Mhm.
I've told you a number of times, and maybe this, I don't know if I toward the board, but my chest swells with pride when I go through those parks and they have improved dramatically in the last couple of years.
Well, thank you.
The weeds are gone and the bluff, doing the Bluegrass Festival. I mean, it's just, I wish my lawn looked like that. Well, it does where I have synthetic turf, but everybody else it doesn't.
Which Ace Hardware has.
Yeah. Yeah, all right, so, Aaron? Your turn to talk.
I think, I suggested to you some type of project manager. I have no knowledge of construction, and even if I did, would not have the time to be down at the construction sites in the summer.
Right.
You know, it'd be helpful to have someone with that background and, you know, also some grant writing capability. You know, Melanie and I have been thrown into like the housing needs assessment. We met with the county in Silver Cliff. Bob was there as a citizen. But, you know, it's just a lot of extra time and taking away from what I really need to be doing. You know, so I think the grant writing, construction background, you know, some experience, you know, Caleb did the 5-year capital plan and I wasn't really involved in that process and, you know, I wasn't involved in the grant stuff, so I'm trying to scramble with what grants we should apply for this year and, you know, that would be a good background for someone to come in with that. You know, Melanie and I have picked up a lot with the current grant stuff and I can't speak for her, but I think she's willing to take on some. It's just a learning curve and coming in at, you know, the tail end of all this. So I think, you know, construction and grant writing, I think those two would be important. For whoever fills that spot.
So right now, Dwight is handling the zoning and building permits. But
He is.
You're involved with it too, and
He's doing inspections, and yeah, he's taught me how to write them and what to do and charge and all of that, like the paperwork part.
And I don't know how long Dwight wants to be here. I mean, right now, there's really a low level permits because we don't have new builds coming in and stuff, but in the summer, I don't know if Dwight would want to work that amount of hours to support all the new permits coming in. So that's also, you know,
So
an issue.
you're having your, understanding the code, you know, the, UBC, whether it's called Universal Building Code, whatever it's called these days. That would be a requirement to be certified in that.
Right.
Okay, that's good to know. All right.
And I don't know what type, to be honest, education Dwight or Kayla needs to, you know, do inspections. I don't know.
Well, there's courses, right? They had them.
Yes, of course.
Yeah,
But are they not doing the 2006 anymore?
I don't think
Which
so.
is what we're under.
Yeah.
So somebody that doesn't already have it would have to go to the next level that they're teaching now, which isn't our code.
Yeah, we're 06, I think, IBC. 06.
Yeah.
Right.
And I know Caleb had wanted to hire another part-time building inspector. You know, Dwight shouldn't be on top of roofs and, you know, doing stuff like that. And I know that's something Caleb wanted was another building inspector.
Right.
And I don't know
Well,
how
yeah.
long Dwight
Right.
wants to be here. I mean, he was just temporary years back and here we are now, so,
Right.
you know, that's something to consider.
Okay. Well, let me ask the board then, do you think it's a requirement of the town administrator, manager, whatever we're gonna call it, to be certified as in building inspections?
No, actually, I don't. I don't know if my little write-ups would be useful. I realize
Yeah.
after looking at the Hugo and Oak Creek descriptions in the administrator, there's much more in the administrative job that was in Caleb's description.
Right.
So I had proposed, instead of the town manager, town operations manager.
Right.
And some of these duties, and we can go through this document, in my mind, would be switched to the administrator, who may need more help, or that's not what you were hired on this proposed job description, you were hired under another one. I don't know how that would exactly work, Aaron, but I think that what I'm proposing is the town manager job is shrunk in overall responsibilities with more focus on whatever administration you guys need and the inspections. And a lot of the other stuff gets moved to the administrator, which is the way these other job descriptions have it for the administrator. So the administrator would not need to be an inspector. I think that's what you
Let
asked.
me understand then. You're saying more responsibility than would flow to the clerk administrator?
Huh?
Okay,
Which is a statutory
right.
job, right? It's in the law. The town manager does not exist in the law. DOLA has lots of thoughts about it, but it's not in the law. It's up to us, according to these other laws, to define it what we think it should be.
Okay, so then you'd need a person like Dwight
Yeah,
to be certified to do the inspections.
Full-time, Dwight, full-time, well,
So it doesn't need to be, because the state recognized to deal with them. You know, for plumbing and electrical, they came up here from Canyon, they probably still do, just 1 or 2 days a week, and that's it. So could we, look, that's one thing we could look at is, you know, get somebody, whatever, that could be doing that, or they'll be here on that day. Whatever. Not like we have a gazillion projects going on type of thing, so I'm just throwing that out as far as, instead of having to have somebody full-time in here, all that cost.
Do we know what Silver Cliff has done and for how many days that person is hired for? How part-time is Silver Cliff's?
Well, did he quit?
Isaac
The new
is,
person, right?
yeah, Isaac is
Isaac.
leaving. And then the new person starts at the beginning of February,
Right.
and I think
I
it's
wonder
part-time.
if they would be able to share that person. That's heresy, maybe.
Do you know how many days they are?
I don't know, I can ask Isaac what he was at, but I know it's part-time, whatever.
Yeah, he would.
It certainly makes sense if you could do something like that, to have the two towns share.
The difficulty with that's gonna be, I mean, it's not overwhelming, but our code is different from theirs in certain respects, so I guess we can bring them into compliance both ways. In other words, one code for both towns.
Did that, didn't we, with Roger? You know.
Well, Roger, he helped, us when we were sort of sans, when Caleb didn't know, we didn't have Dwight and so forth, so Roger did help out. And we paid him or paid them, I don't know how that worked. The town, we either paid Roger directly or West Silver, but anyway, what do you guys think about that idea of sharing somebody with, Silver Cliff?
Definitely worth exploring, in my opinion.
I think that would be a really good idea,
Inspections, yeah.
because it'd be one person that maybe has continuity between both towns.
Right.
we still have some job, not town manager presumably, but like I proposed or something else, or are we eliminating that job entirely? Because there are things that are in the that need addressing.
Well, I'm just trying to figure out at this juncture, what needs to get done, you know, in terms of inspections and so forth. And does the town administrator, manager, whatever we're gonna call it, do they need to be certified in inspections?
No, I guess what I was trying to say is if
And
you
that's
look,
not easy to get, by the way, that certification.
I imagine so, yeah. It's a heck of a job. I mean, the town administrator is described in law, and it's Aaron,
The administrator is Aaron already.
yeah. But the job description that exists, in my view, doesn't support the administrator part very much. Especially if you guys read, as I said before, the Hugo and Oak Creek administrator, there's much more power in those. Some of that power exists in today's town manager description, which I suspect was a mistake. And if we want to review those docs I did, I would propose some of those jobs would go to the administrator, leaving the town operations manager, whatever we call it, still would exist, but much more focused on contracts, inspections, and whatever supervision the parks guys need. And a lot of the more vague things about policies and the like would go to the administrator.
So grant writing and things like that would go to the administrator?
Yeah. With the contribution from this other job as needed. Now, I admit, this is changing your job description, maybe, right underneath you. I don't know what you think of that. And maybe you would need help to do all the duties you have. But I guess the emphasis, what I was proposing is a diminished, no more town manager. something less.
So Melanie,
Yeah.
since you've been here, has your job, obviously because of the changeover in staff, it has changed. How do you see your position? And do you have the time and
Yes.
expertise to?
Absolutely. That's one of the reasons I passed out my resume and, you know, the evaluation and all of that is because I feel like my qualities are being underutilized and I feel like I can take on a lot more responsibility in helping Aaron. I have experience in doing a lot of the things that Caleb did. And I think that what Mark is suggesting would be good, shrink that down and do just those like project management, construction, building and zoning and stuff, and that Aaron and I would take on the rest, but I can take on the grant writing, as long as I know what you guys have decided to choose for grants, things like that. Keeping up with the laws, that's something I did at Star Point, and then all of the management and moving parts, I've done a lot. And problem solving is my biggest, I think, asset.
Okay, that's cool.
Christie?
I just had a comment really quick. Joni Liebman has put together a list of people in this community that write grants and that can help. I mean, as we all know, there are a lot of nonprofits here and there's a lot of people that know how to write grants and will help and do that for a fee. There's also a regional grant coordinator that exists in the COG area, which is Beth Lenz, and he's a resource as far as someone who knows what grants are available out there, what might be good for the community. And then as far as like project management goes, there are also, again, in this community, there are people that have been project managers and just do it, like get called in, hey, will you come manage this project for me? Jerry Pearl is one. I just worked with him on a project, a TAP grant in Fountain with who I work with. So there are people that do these jobs in a part-time capacity or as needed capacity that wouldn't necessarily be bringing in a whole position to do all of this, just use it as needed. And maybe if there's we get tons of grants and there's tons of projects going, then at that point you could look at a full-time position.
All right, let me ask Aaron. How do you feel about this?
I mean, I've actually thought about what Christy just said, because I know a lot of grant writers in the community. But, you know, Caleb did a good job with the bigger picture because he created the capital plan. He applied for the grants, then he was down at the construction site, so it was this full circle, you know, not this broken up, one person does the grant, one person's down there with Mike Langston or whoever. So, I mean, from that aspect, it was nice for that person in that position to see the whole thing through. That's kind of my only concern with that.
In this revision I did, I think I said that the operations manager would cooperate with you
Right.
as need be in the grant writing.
I mean, the paperwork comes to me and the billing comes to me, but as far as the knowledge of what's happening down at the construction site, I don't know.
What I was trying to say is they would contribute, but
Right,
you would maintain the responsibility for the final form
right.
of grants, RFPs, all that stuff.
But like Christy said, we could start with someone part-time or just kind of helping out on a contract basis and then maybe see that into come into a full
We're talking
job.
about grants there. Bob, go ahead.
Thank you, Christie, because you reminded me, that's what I wanted to bring up today. And there's, as far as I can tell, I'm going to be in a meeting here toward the end of the month. The Community Foundation is going through some changing things. And they're big time grant, because, you know, all of us, I've been involved in 2 major nonprofits here in the county for way longer than I want to share. But anyway, grant writing has always been a nemesis for all of us, right? And so anyway, so they're basically really professionalize that. So it may be something that we could visit with them, okay, that say, hey, here's here's the thing, and again, I keep saying, we're not giant. It's not like we have all these, thousands of, or hundreds of projects, going on. And, so anyway, I like that idea. And then also on your point there, Aaron, as far as, being down with Langston and whatever construction project, we have a lot of smart contractors that do that. That's where they make their living. And I've talked to a couple of them and I said, hey, would you be interested in maybe, moonlighting for the town? And I look at it like, give back to the community, maybe type of situation, pay you, but, whatever it may be. So that, and we have, and I mean, a lot of them, like, they're doing projects that we don't even know they're doing, but that's what they do, because like you said, Dave, you're doing stuff down in Fountain. We've got people that are working in Denver area and Grand Junction. I worked all over the West in my business. I managed a lot of big projects. So anyway, I think we have the resources here. And again, it's not like it's a full-time thing. It may evolve into that, but we're finite here.
I mean, those are good points, Bob. But what I'm asking Aaron is supervisory responsibilities under this document that Mark prepared regarding job description for the clerk administrator. The last line, town clerk, the town clerk is a single point of contact with the mayor and the board of trustees. We'll coordinate daily with town operations manager. The clerk is responsible for the supervision of the town operation manager or his or her assigned employees. You see that?
Yes.
How do you feel about that?
I mean, at this point, I am technically managing her, the office staff is her and I. I mean, I feel like that's kind of already happening right now.
The town manager doesn't never reported to you.
No, I mean,
don't
the
think-
town manager and the town clerk were supposed to be
Separate.
equals.
Yeah.
And I was supposed to be managing the office staff, which is just Melanie, and he was managing the guys. So, I mean, that was what was on paper.
But now this is a switch in organizational form
Right,
where everybody would report to you. I mean, just the Melanie and the town administrator, to whatever we're gonna call it, operations manager,
right.
would report to you. And Neil would report to the town operations manager.
Right,
Okay, how do you feel about that?
I'm fine with that.
I feel that would go a long way to get rid of the, contention there was between the town manager and in your position. Because we all know that he thought he was above everybody and that y'all were report to him.
Right,
And that's not what the board wanted. And that individual couldn't bring himself to do that. So I think that having one single point of contact with you would be very good.
The point of tension that Chuck just brought up, in my mind, it never existed until Caleb came aboard. Now, Kathy was not here. I don't know that there was a point of tension between Mike and Kathy.
And I could tell.
I mean, nobody ever told me about it, So part of it has to do with the individuals who are occupying those offices and those jobs. So that tension didn't start immediately, but it started about 6 months after Caleb started, I would say. That he then demanded more, and he did not like Kathy. He told her a couple of times that a lot of changes are gonna happen when you're gone. And I guess they are. That did happen. So, yeah.
On that topic, if we could look at this town operations manager description I put out.
Sure.
I underlined a lot of the changes they're very small that I made. And I debated when I wrote this, that I think one of the problems with this job description that might have contributed to this equilibrium tension is on the second page, paragraph 1. Develop, administer, and enforce all ordinance, policies, regulations of the town, including matters, blah, blah, blah. And then there's A, B, and C underneath it. A, for example, requires the ability to read, interpret, color, statutory, constitutional law. B, state regs. C, A, B, and C, in my view, should never have been in the town manager job description in the first place. They should have been the administrator. And if you look at the administrator jobs for, as I've said a couple times already, for Hugo and Oak Creek, those job descriptions have that kind of meat in them. So I think paragraph 1, ABC, was also a cause of tension because it implied that the town manager was the custodian of the rules and regs. And that's an administrator's job. Aaron, do you agree with that?
I agree, and I mean, I think it's best practice to send all the ordinances to Clay first for review. Because not all of them were sent to Clay, and then we get at one of the BOT meetings and, you know, some of those ordinances were not correct or, you know, drafted, and so I would want to send them to Clay anyways. I mean,
Okay.
I don't mind doing the initial drafting, but really, the town attorney needs to be
Be blessing.
looking at
Involved.
that, and
Yeah.
sometimes they weren't sent to Clay.
So you're the single point, and somewhere in here, I think in my modified administrator, it says you are the final editor of all this stuff. Because it may be sort of informally now, but anything this revised job person would create in coordination with you, reflecting the fact, hopefully they will know more about construction and all that, nonetheless goes through you and be your responsibility to make sure it's legally reviewed.
Right.
Yeah.
I mean, again, I think best practice is the attorney having the final, you know.
Yeah. So on that same page, under paragraph 2, there's A, policies concerning personnel are in place, but blah, blah, blah. That should also be in the job description of the administrator. I'm thinking. So that diminishes the scope, and I think Caleb spent a lot of time on you know, what the town should be, as we all know, with the revised government structure and such. And if anybody's doing that, you could say that paragraph 1 ABC allows them to do that. But if we want somebody to be cognizant of how up to snuff we are, it should be the administrator.
If the administrator is doing the work as far as what they are and making them whatever the board wants to be,
Mhm.
who's doing the enforcement? I think the way I understood the manager's position, it was his job to enforce the rules.
You mean in general, like parking and this and that?
Yeah, all the rules. You know?
Yeah.
And so like the ordinances.
Ordinance.
Ordinances.
Yes, sir.
Um,
Somebody's got to enforce it. She might be the administrator of it, but who's gonna do the enforcement?
Let's make sure you have somebody that does it. Who's
well,
responsible.
I agree with what Neil's saying is that if somebody's violating an ordinance, who's gonna catch up? I mean, I think it would be the town project manager, or whatever, to notify that person they're not in compliance, they need to get in compliance. Since this, I envision this person to be out and about, you know, working with you and your team and so forth. So I think that responsibility lands squarely on the shoulders of the project manager, whatever, however we're defining this person's description, or title.
Operations manager.
I think that
That's
I think the administrator has to make sure the ordinances are in place, that they're legal, et cetera, and, you know, it all flows up though to the administrator if the manager, project manager doesn't do it, then the administrator's got to step in and make sure it gets done.
Well, on that,
Yeah,
I left in here, again, paragraph 1 on the second page. I mean, I didn't try to solve everything here. I mean, it says develop, administer, and enforce all ordinances, policies, and regulations. So that still remains with the town operations manager.
okay, so let's see, develop.
That's,
Okay, now
I
the word develop,
don't know about the develop,
I
but
would take administer out of that because you're being contradictory. You want
Well, they
the town manager, the town clerk to be the administrator of the, point of contact for the ordinances.
yeah,
I would just take the word administrator out of number 1, develop and enforce all in, or assist in the development. Because ultimately, it's the clerk's
okay.
job to say that
Yeah.
that the
yeah, that's a good point too, Chuck.
ordinance is to be, they're the single point of contact for that.
Yeah. I mean, that was actually old text, and that was in there. And actually, when I read this and spent some time on it, although it talked these A, Bs, and Cs, which I'm thinking should be moved, it didn't really talk a whole bunch about what enforcing the ordinances actually meant. I don't know that there was anything spelled out in the old job description that directly referred to that. Sort of the policing powers,
Well,
You know, if we look at this from a business standpoint, as a business, and you guys are the board of directors, you wouldn't have 2 people reporting to you. To me, you should have 1 person reporting to you that's responsible for the results of the town. Therefore, if anything's wrong, the ultimate responsibility. Now, that person needs people under him or her. But I think to get real accountability and results, you have to have 1 person that says, I'm responsible for the operation of the town, reporting to you guys.
Right.
I think that's what Mark's trying to do.
I'm trying to do that.
Yeah, and I was just thinking from the standpoint of I'm thinking of order of operations and what I'm hearing, it's like Board of Trustees says, we want these ordinances. They tell Aaron that, Aaron then goes to I'm gonna call it a zoning officer, operations person, and says, go enforce this. And if that doesn't get done, you guys are getting heat on the street that we don't like this. Then you go back to Aaron and it goes like that, but it's very clearly spelled out. This is where it starts, then it goes to here, this person sends it to here.
Yep.
well. I hear what you're saying about 1 touch point. Having been in business most of my adult life. And I've been on this board for a long time and I've been mayor for 6 years or 7 years. I like the 2 touch points, personally like it. But we never had any difficulty with it until just recently. And because one individual, beyond just wanting 1 touch point with the mayor, went way beyond what that implied or actually was in terms of what he wanted to do. It sort of treated us as a functionary. He was gonna drive everything. I don't see that in Aaron as an individual. But Caleb certainly wanted that. So the board can talk about that the way I like to work as mayor. And I have some rights, I think I do.
But if you want 2 people.
Yeah.
Then those job descriptions have to be absolutely clearly defined to where they don't cross over.
I got you.
Because listening to some of the meetings here was like, Caleb says it's her job to get it done, and she thought it was Caleb's job to get it done, and you can't have that kind of vagueness if you want good results.
I agree, no question about that. I agree. But as the mayor, if I wanna talk to Neil, I go talk to Neil. I mean, I don't do it very often, but it's nothing, and I don't really direct him. But if I wanna talk to him about something, I wanna be brought up to date on something, somebody's talked to me about it. I often see Neil on the street and I just stop and talk to him. You know, I think that, now, if every board member did that, I don't think that'd be right. They go through me. And then I would talk to him or talk to him never. But it's my management style it's management by walking around. It's what it's always been since I've been 25 years old, and, I don't know. Of course, now I own my own business, so I can do what the hell I want, but, anyway, I got you, that the clear definition of who's responsible for what is critical. And, so I'll take the board's advice or direction on how the reporting racial relationship should work. Okay, fair enough.
I mean,
Another mayor wanna do it differently, and that's fine too. But, you know, this is a weak mayoral operation, so, we have to rely heavily on our administrative staff to execute everything we want. Now, we had a planning committee meeting last night and got through it all, or at least I did. I got my part of it done. Anyway, we have a master plan now. Well, it's a great master plan. I think it's gonna be approved by the board. Well, there's really things in there that are gonna drive our decision-making process in terms of funding. When we do our budgets every year, we're gonna say, this is in the master plan, and we wanna, the planning committee is gonna send that to the board, and we gonna say, we need to take some of this on this year in our budget, or it'll never get done. If we want this plan, we've gotta do something, make steps to execute it. So that's gonna drive your job, and your job. You know, for example, there's just stuff in there, I'm not gonna go way into it, but it all impacts on us. It's coming out of the planning committee, which is its role. It's gonna go to the board for approval, which is its role. So we approve it. So what? It's our job to execute it. Make sense? So that's gonna drive a lot of what the rest of the body does. Not entirely, but you know, there's certain elements that we have to do as a routine basis. But that's gonna shape a lot of what gets done in the town, and I'm committed to getting that done, you know, while I'm still upright. So, I guess I'm wondering, and I apologize for that. But your advice is good about clear descriptions as who's gonna do what and who's responsible to whom. And, so,
so Paul,
yes,
if, you know, you expressed your style of trying to talk to people in the suggestions that I've tried to make here, where we remove a lot of the more generic, legal stuff from the job description of the town operations manager and give it to the administrator, who the two of you guys seem to be willing to take that on. That shouldn't stop you from talking to the town operations manager if you choose to, does it?
no, I hope it doesn't.
I mean, we're still trying to drive for one person in charge, are we not? Or are we not?
Right. So what do you think about that? If the town operations manager reports to you,
Yeah.
you have a problem with me talking to him or her.
No. I mean, me, you and Neil sat down that one day and,
Yeah,
you know, Neil knows priorities for what needs to be done in the parks and upgrades, and
Right.
you were asking me the financial side. I mean, that level of collaboration, I think, gets stuff done,
Teamwork.
yeah,
Okay.
quicker than
Yeah.
you feeling like you can't talk to Neil, and then you're talking to me, but I don't know the stuff Neil knows, and So, you know, I don't have a problem with you talking to whoever you want.
His eyes are checked.
John?
Yeah, I just want to say that I think it's absolutely essential that one person is in charge. I also believe in management by wandering around. I've done that for decades. But when you do that, when you talk to somebody, you just talk to them. You can't give them direction. If you think direction needs to be given, then you need to circle back to Aaron and it needs to go through the chain of command. I think that's where it can break down. You don't want to be in a management role. The Board of Trustees is a board of governors, not a board of managers. And when our insurance company came to give us that training, they were very clear about that. That if you, all of us old guys here in the room, step into that management role, then we open ourselves up for human resources problems and lawsuits. So you, the Board of Trustees, just having one employee that you work through to manage the town, I think is essential. It's like the school board with the superintendent. It's like Round Mountain with Dave Snyder. You know, you take Dave out of that equation, I don't know what happens to Round Mountain right now.
Randy takes over.
Randy takes over. Randy shoots himself if you make him take over. But that's what I'm making, coming from decades of leadership and management in my working life.
Had the same experience with military contractors and the railroads, which are very organized. One of the troubles, though, is when you have a new person come into a job and they're not clear about what they're doing, then they do need intervention from the people who had the original view of that job, but they really can only suggest, and they have to keep the chain of command informed.
Yes.
So it's a balancing act.
So then I'm also very pleased that Aaron is willing to take that responsibility, to be that person. Also, we haven't talked about the planning commission that much and our role, but we have been, when I first got involved with the planning commission, it was absolutely passive and reactive. Passive and reactive. We waited for someone to come with an issue. Oftentimes we didn't even meet because we didn't think we had anything to do. Lately, we've been meeting three times a month, 2 times a month, working through this master plan, which is a statutory requirement for the planning commission. And I think we've come up with something that's much better than what we had before. And as a planning commission, as we put this in the master plan, we need to keep driving it on a regular basis and reviewing it on a quarterly basis and dishing out opportunities for the town to the Board of Trustees for approval. Melanie, I agree. I think she's probably underutilized. She's been active and productive and important member of that team putting that master plan together. She's been much more than just a person taking notes for us. We couldn't get it done without her, and I think she could do more. And when she says she could help with grants, I think I absolutely believe that. But I think there's one other thing with grants that we're missing. It's one thing to write them and to administer them and project management those grants, but to seek them is another important job. So to seek them, to go out and find them, because this town lives and dies on grants. And a lot of things in that master plan are going to require grants to get done. And so that's important. What Christie said about the person,
Regional grant.
the regional grant navigator, we need it. We need that kind of help, that navigator to say, here's where all the grants are that we can go for, and it's probably more than she knows about. And we don't want to leave that kind of money on the table. There's a lot that we can get done, and the more grants we get, then the more project management and administration resources we will need. But I'm liking the direction of what I'm hearing today. And that's my 2 bits.
Thanks, John.
Well, speaking of master plan, if I may ask, are we going off of our website? We have a government website for the town of West Cliff. And if we go to the planning commission and click on the master plan, it's dated from, what was it, 1921, 22? So have we been working toward that master plan?
Oh, we have.
We just, last night barely went through all of it, and hopefully it's going to be on the Board of Trustees meeting next, on the 21st for approval. And then that, what's on the website now will go away and this new one will come into place.
And
Okay, cause I work out in the public and the public's constantly asking me where to get the information on how the town's governed, where's the town's municipal codes, planning stuff, and I send them to this website. And if we're not following this website or utilizing it to guide us.
Do we want to send them to the website, or do we want to send them to Aaron?
Well, even if you send them to Aaron, Aaron's gotta
I
make
mean,
a copy or something, but
once
then our
the board-
website's not right.
Yeah, once the board approves the master plan, then I can put it on the website. But right now, I can't until it's approved.
so,
And it will be on the agenda this month.
but to, title, all our ordinances are online,
Yes.
and, Title 10 and so forth, are online. We've changed that over the years. We continue, but the whole, everything, an individual needs to know, everything. But the broad brush stuff is on our website. And, I haven't been on it for a while, so maybe it needs to be updated or changed or whatever.
Well, and beginning with this year, now we're working with a company who's gonna do it all.
Yeah.
I just send them, the new information and they post it on the site. It's, ADA compliant, so it's gonna be a lot easier moving forward.
But that's a good point, I've never, when people ask me and I tell them, but back to the master plan and the way we work. And actually Caleb made this suggestion to me, which is a good suggestion, is that midway through the year, we need to start planning for next year. So we don't want to come down and have the staff do the budget, and then it comes in front of us and we haven't really had a lot of input into it. So we need to start like in June, doing our planning for 2026. And the staff, the board, the staff will do that. We'll use a master plan as part of our guide. And whatever Neil needs, whether, we need to be thinking about this or that, we need to replace this equipment or that equipment, we need this equipment, whatever, same with you folks. So we'll start in June to do the budget. And we will go into the master plan and we'll whack off something out of that we think we can actually get done in a year and we'll fund it. Make sense? And it's just 1 year, one step at a time. We keep going and that's the way I would like to govern, if you will, for lack of a better term. I don't know what the board thinks about that.
Well, it's a good idea that the board be involved before it comes to
Right.
the budget, because, we could have projects that we wanna do and
Right,
but it's not in the budget.
right.
So we need to straighten that out.
Yeah, no, I got you.
I agree 100% with Randy that for the budget, we should definitely, and you, that we should start working on that budget way before when we did, at least as far as the board of trustees involvement.
When do you start putting it together? The dollar amounts?
I think in the past, it's been June is when Kathy
June.
kind of started doing it.
It's been when?
June, I think historically. That, you know, it was June that she kind of started
So
training me
it'll be-
before it got, you know,
Right.
to you guys.
Incumbent upon you then to schedule a meeting with the board for the initial budget planning meeting. And it'll be incumbent upon you as chairman of the planning committee to realize that's coming up. Either be a part of that meeting or to at least talk to the planning committee itself in May to say, you know, budget time is here, what do we want to try to achieve out of the plan this year? Does that make sense?
Yes. And I would like to then ask, I mean, we're talking about really reviewing the master plan every quarter to kind
Right.
of pull out what we would like to present to the board as, let's work on this. Melanie, please, can we like put a standing thing in where quarterly we kind of start, you remind us, because like a quarter comes up and you're like, where did the last 3 months go?
Okay,
Would it be too much to perhaps start a board of trustees and planning commission workshop, like maybe in July? Come in and work for half an hour on prospective things for the budget so that nothing gets
well,
dropped
I
or
think that
snuck.
should happen in June, should start in May with the planning committee. Now, maybe the planning committee wants to have a joint workshop with the board in May, and then we'll have that and there are other things that are gonna go into the budget that you guys think need to be done, besides what's on the plan, the master plan. Master plan is a long-term, then there's just,
Short-term
immediate
and medium and long-term.
one's acute and one's chronic. Medicine, hospital management is, so daily operations is acute, long-term is chronic. Anyway, all right.
I had another,
One more question from the audience.
boy, I've been told I'm gonna be hacking for another 3 weeks. COVID got me.
Uh-oh.
I passed 3 tests in a row. So.
Me too.
The second one. Jerry.
I agree with John's assessment, 100%, absolutely everything he said. And if Aaron's the person, first thing I would do is say, Aaron, what do you think you need under you in terms of organization? You know, as a business, if I hire a new president, the board hires a new president, president comes in and said, I'm gonna decide how I want the organization to be under me. Whether it's as it exists today or however, but I think if you're gonna give that person a job, you've gotta listen to them in terms of how they wanna organize.
Good point, Marty.
You know, talking about getting going on the budget earlier, I think sometimes the planning commission and BOT, we haven't communicated maybe as best as we would like you guys were unaware that the park advisory committee had come up with a plan, which I apologize for that, since I'm the fearless leader of it, even though it's taking a nap at the moment. But I wondered if we needed what I call the West Cliff Strategic Advisory, committee. It's an advisory committee built like the park one. It's only got 2 board members on it, so it's not subject to sunshine. It has representatives of the community on it, probably a member of the planning commission, and it chews on some of these long-term issues. I think it's hard, even in a workshop, to really go through all the what ifs and maybes about any one topic in depth. And we gotta get the whole group together, and it's hard to do. So I wrote up something, I don't know if the board would think it's worth doing, that a smaller group would ruminate on some of these topics and then report to the board with,
How is that different from the strategic plan and the planning committee?
well, I think we'd focus on specific stuff, like the budget. Or if we decided we were gonna revamp the whole town structure, like Caleb wanted to do, it would take that on as well. Well, I'm not proposing we do the whole thing, but that was one of his proposals. So it may be a way, I mean, I think in a lot of these workshops, sometimes it's hard to go through the ideas, especially if you come up with something that ends up sounding kind of stupid, you know. it's harder when it's on the record. And this is an okay thing because it only advises the board. Now, I don't know if you don't want yet another group.
Well, it is, you know, we are all unpaid volunteers.
Indeed, we are.
I'm sorry?
Highly paid.
Highly paid, yes. And it takes up, we're volunteers. I'm not, you know, I know Bob's gone a lot, I'm gone a lot, and so forth and so on, so, you know.
Well, there's
It
only
just-
be
it's
two
just-
board members on
Well, I know, but,
instead of the whole shooting match.
yeah. And we're, all right, so how would that information flow in? I think there's somebody out there.
Just like-
Well, the town advisory, it had to post its meetings. I think they were every Tuesday, second Tuesday, or one of the clear ones, unless canceled. It had to do minutes and it made reports to the board. That's what we did. And it only acts on things at the board's direction. I mean, this doesn't have to happen, but it occurred to me that it's hard to get a whole bunch of us together.
Well, we could always have an ad hoc committee that.
Yeah.
That would be on issues that we thought, man,
I'll think about it. I mean,
Well, there's a lot of
I
committees
don't
out
have a
there.
problem with it, it's just that, you know, we could get locked up in administrivia too, so.
Well, there's so many committees out there. How is each one of them talking to the planning committee or even the board? We've got a park. The Bluff Park has its own committee. Memorial Park has its own committee. A lot of times we gotta go to planning meetings and stuff
The
and then,
Bluffs committee is a thing.
the bluff.
I'm on it, yeah.
yeah, and then would they want us to do certain stuff? Well, that affects the budget.
Yeah.
And the long-term master plan, cause you know, they're changing the park without their knowledge. Somebody needs to get together with all these committees and,
Well, I don't know about that. I mean, I'm not saying I don't agree with you. All I can say is the Park Advisory Committee had meetings at the behest of the board, made a report, and then it's not been active since. So it reported to the board. So it's just an idea.
well, that was internally made, right? That park committee?
It had members of the public.
And did it address all the other park committees?
Well, there's no Memorial Park Committee. There's no,
There was, right?
a long time ago.
Bluff used to be through open lands, through Colorado.
What's
But
the
now
minutes?
it's me, Jackie, Barnes, Neil, Gary Taylor,
Just for the bluff.
Chuck, yeah.
I think that what we should do is, we have a lot on our plate right now in this discussion, and we're just adding to it. I don't disagree with it. But I'd like to think about that for a while and get input from more board members, just thinking about it.
Yeah.
As we haven't come with this, you know, the whole thing on purpose of this meeting was to talk about the town manager position. And it's evolved now into this. And we brought up the planning committee. And could this be a subset, this committee be a subset of the planning committee? We have a lot of things on our plate. If we should get this grant for housing, who does that?
Mm-hmm.
It's gonna take a lot of work to get it done in terms of planning it out and so on and on, and administering it, so. Where does that lie in the total scheme of things? Does that fall to the planning committee to plan it and then do it? I just don't wanna stumble into it, cause it'll be a big mess then, so we wanna try to do as much planning as we can. So, let's go through this, get this done, and, what do you guys think of that concept of a strategic issues committee? I'm just asking.
Oh, what
Do
Mark
you have any
is,
thoughts besides his?
Wait a minute.
Randy?
Well, just as far as the parks, let's say, it's always been, since Mark and I have been on that, that we handle the Memorial Park, we handle the Veterans Park. And
In terms of what?
Just Price?
Jess Price Park, yeah.
We made that report to you guys.
Yeah.
But how does that affect the planning committee? The
Well,
master
now,
plan?
We acknowledged, what's been done, what's to be done in the master plan. It's up to, I don't know.
I didn't see anything in the master
Oh, you
plan about
don't?
redoing
That's the
Just
only-
Price Park.
Yeah.
No.
I didn't mean to do all this
Jess
meeting.
Price Park.
Thanks a lot, Mark.
Yeah.
Put it on the cloud for this chair.
I mean, the whole point was simply that if the board thought there needed to be something to be really ruminated or chewed on.
Right.
Like, what are we gonna do with this town land, what kind of buildings, maybe they would be given that.
Christie?
When I look at what your agenda was today, and that was to revisit the town administration layout, it seems like going into committees and subcommittees and things is kind of getting into the weeds. Like, maybe you really need to focus on what are the positions going to be? Is it just going to be an administrator? Is there going to be an operations manager? Is that person going to be full-time or part-time? And then maybe all of those committees and things can be discussed at a later date. But I mean, I appreciate hearing this from the planning commission side, because this is definitely stuff that I think we need to know, and we can remember that these now I know to ask, like, hey, what's going on with the Bluffs Committee? What's going on with the parks that I didn't know? I didn't know to ask that question. So that's good to know. But I think, as a taxpayer, I'm sitting here thinking that I would feel more comfortable in you guys lining out what's going on administrative wise with the town. Because that concerns me as a taxpayer, that it's been so willy-nilly for a little while here.
Adrian?
Does the town have an organizational chart? I'm visual and I like to just see how things flow, and then you can kind of get a better thing watching what's going on in Los Angeles right now. And all the
I'm reading it
finger
right
pointing
now.
that's
Right now,
going
we've got
on.
an organizational chart, which is right here.
It's
pretty simple.
We got it written.
Yeah, that's a written one.
Yeah, the clerk reports to the mayor, town manager reports to the mayor.
Town attorney,
I'm sorry,
town attorney.
town attorney, and then we've got, Neil reports to the town manager. Melanie reports to the town clerk administrator. Then we have a planning committee, which reports to the board. And that's about it.
So the top of the chart, Adrian, is the 7 of us.
Yeah.
That's the top right now.
So,
Or the citizens of the town are at the top of the chart.
That's right.
Yeah.
They were on us.
you know,
Yeah.
they don't have any input.
Yeah.
But we do, I mean,
Only
you
when
guys
we
are all,
miss the
you guys
ball.
are all here as citizens, and as are we, so,
But who ultimately gets thrown under the bus?
excuse me?
Who ultimately gets thrown under the bus when Shiite doesn't happen?
It's Aaron,
You know,
is what we're talking about.
So
That's kind of what I'm
Could be
hearing.
me, they could unelect me, they could all redo, so anyway, but that's a good point.
I just wanted to circle back on something Jerry said. I think it's important in the way this is headed. Aaron's going to be the head of the pyramid. And everybody's going to report to her either directly or indirectly. If there is a new town operations manager, I think it's important that Aaron has significant input on the job description for that person.
And I think, like we said earlier, separate, make sure what falls under your purview and then what this other job.
Well, we really have, John, we really have, 3 job descriptions we're talking about, not just one. Because Aaron and Melanie's responsibility is gonna change
Yes.
and so forth, so,
And then when something happens to Aaron, Paul, where does that line of authority play? Have a plan for when things don't.
nothing's gonna happen to Aaron.
understand.
Well, you're making a good point. And that, you know, before Aaron arrived, that always bothered me about Kathy. We would have been lost without Kathy Rice. So, and that's a weakness. And so we need to figure out how we fix that, whether or not Melanie can do the essentials of the job until we find a replacement. That, you know, maybe we need to structure it that way too, so that you're somewhat cross-trained on payroll, on those kinds of things.
And that's already on my management objectives, Paul. Is once, you know, things, because right now she's real busy with the business license renewals. So, you know, one of my goals was February, March, when things are kind of slow, to cross-train her on paying the bills, payroll, you know, just
Those
kind
are
of
the
monthly
essentials, yeah.
things. She's sat in on the BOT meetings, and she is going to for a while, because she kind of knows what the planning commission is, you know, doing as far as collaborating with that, but that is a goal to cross-train her, 'cause I
Now,
could
you
win the
mentioned-
lottery and just.
You're taking me with you if you win the lottery.
You did mention a couple of things. You know, we applied for the big grants for the DOT and we got them, that was great. But really that came to us as a board, my memory is, sort of after the fact. Nobody came to us and said, shall we do it? I don't remember that.
Before my time, I think.
Yeah, well, I mean, you know, like the TAP grants and so forth, but.
Yeah.
And the way the board meetings are now, we have staff reports at the end of the meeting, and they bring that stuff up. That's very little time to have a discussion. There's no time to have a discussion. So maybe the mayor should have at least a monthly meeting with everybody to discuss issues that we want to tackle, get on the board and start discussing in the workshop, whatever. Does that make sense?
Gosh, perhaps it's the advisory committee.
Excuse me?
Never mind.
Oh, boy. Well,
Nothing.
I have not, you know, I've, like I say, management and I go see Kathy and Caleb or Mike, whoever was in that seat, and just talk with them. And I would give them advice best I could, you know, within my level of authority as mayor. Lots of it's, you know, Kathy knew everything that had to go to the board. So, you know, in my scope of responsibilities, for example, the land that we own, that's the town lots, we've had, you know, discussed ad nauseum. I want to have that surveyed, okay? Can I, as mayor, I was gonna bring it to the board the next time, can I, as mayor, just say, have it surveyed? Hire a company to survey it. Or does it have to come to the board? What's my level of authority? It's not in the budget. So if I had set the budget, we could do it because we already planned for it and the board approved it. But then something that comes up ad hoc like that, you know, we didn't plan for it, it's gonna cost money. What's my level of authority? I just, you know,
Doesn't that have
just
to
shoot
come,
and ask questions later, you know?
doesn't that have to come on for the grant? We didn't have to have the survey to get utilities and everything out
I
there?
don't think so.
I think it does. I think before you go get the grants, you're gonna have to have the place surveyed. But the thing is, you can probably get the survey done
We
through the grant.
I wanna get it done before but as part of our overall plan. But we talked to the person from DOLA and she said anything about that.
And the grant's already applied.
And she might think that, well, we have that property, we don't need a survey. But I think we do, we need to know how much land is there, number one.
Sure, we gotta know what the sales people is.
Yeah, but like I said, when you apply for that grant, they're probably gonna have requirements on that. And one of the requirements will be that you have it surveyed if you get the grant.
It's been applied for already. We
Yeah.
talked to DOLA and they have what they need for it already.
Yeah.
It's already moving forward.
But I wanna get it, I wanna see if we can survey.
No, we have not gotten the
Randy's
grant.
saying
We've
if you
applied.
get it, once you get it, they may require a survey, so are you jumping the gun? But I would think that anything that wasn't budgeted, that would have to come back to the board for approval. So if there was a survey in the budget, then could Paul as mayor say, yeah, go ahead and do the survey? That would be more reasonable, but if it's not in the budget, for the mayor to just say, I know it's not in the budget, but find the money and do the survey, I think that is not appropriate, and I think that's a misuse of power.
Well, maybe the
I was
town
thinking the exact same
manager,
thing.
town operations manager ought to have a small discretionary fund. Matter of fact, I think Caleb did he not?
I suggested that. I call it a slush fund, but that's really a bad term.
Well, a contingency is a good term.
At $40,000.
Yeah.
Parks and
Yeah,
Yeah.
and so,
Well, Neil, for example, wanted some road base to put on Fifth Street,
yes, sir.
and, it was $5,000 or something like that,
Two.
$2,000. It wasn't in the budget, we did it.
Yeah.
But we, he's got a budget for his department. And I think, we took it out of the Parks and Rec or whatever it was. but we found
Streets.
it.
I think it came out of streets, didn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So we got it done.
Yeah.
But, those little details you cannot predict. And so at some point, if you wait a month, if you go out the wrong time, it might be more than a month because you're getting it on the agenda. So,
Well, I think the quote slush fund, as long as what it's doing is in the general scope of streets, then it's up to the management to make a
But it's
decision.
already budgeted, that was budget, parks and streets, there's a budget for that, and I don't think you're budgeting down every single penny. Maybe like how much propane you think you're gonna use to run the shop and things, but, at some point, you have to give him the authority to know what he needs to fix the streets, and if that's $2,000 in gravel, then yeah, it's in your budget, do it.
And
I think there's an amount of money too, that is, I don't know what it's gonna cost to do a survey. Hell, I think they do it by satellite. And so, that's long, I remember talking to Kit and he said, man, it's
Way different.
way, way different now than it was. And, I'll bring it to the board though. I'll get that on the agenda, doing a survey of the town property, over there, just the town, what we call the town lots. And we'll get a price on it and everything. So, all right, we're way off target here. Let me we're at an hour now, hour and a half. Let me try to kind of sum up what we've agreed to, okay? We've agreed that we're gonna have a town operations manager. Sorry?
Coordinator, I think would be a better word than manager, just to,
Yeah, get that manager out of there. That's what got us here the first.
yeah.
Operations coordinator. Okay?
Yeah.
Just operations, sounds good.
We're going to have a clerk / administrator. And all town departments, if you will report to the clerk administrator. We will be expanding the assistant clerk's role to include a broader, she will still have to learn that, sort of the critical success factor, critical elements of the clerk's job, but will also be responsible for grant writing, coordinating that. Doesn't have to be her, but we coordinate. Anything else with?
I'll have to revise, once you guys decide the language, I'll revise her job description for the same reason, if she's not here whatever.
Right.
Then that next person coming in knows exactly what they're applying for and,
Right.
you know.
So, building inspections,
Excuse me?
building inspections.
Well, we do have, that would fall under the, operations coordinator. And we do have Dwight in that position now. He may not want to carry on that. He's in his seventies someplace, I think. And, has he ever talked to you guys about wanting to quit?
No, I mean,
He works
you know,
days,
he was
days.
supposed to be temporary until Caleb got trained, and here we are, what, 2 years
Yeah,
later?
brought that up too, so I don't know if he wants to do it forever.
I don't think so.
Well, it seems to me that, this town operations coordinator, probably could do that job. It just depends how big things get and how many projects we get going, at a time.
Yeah, especially if we're removing some of the stuff that I suggested.
Right.
That goes to the administrator, so.
But we do have that job in the budget.
Yes.
And so we could keep it there as a part-time job, or better yet, we could talk to Silver and see if they, how often that guy works for them. But we don't want to shove Dwight out if he wants the job. So,
I mean, in the winter, part-time is fine, because there's no new builds going on, very few permits you guys
Yeah,
are
very
processing, but then
Just a few
spring
questions.
hits and, you know, all the permits ramp up.
The only problem with doing part-time, if we were to give a Silver Cliff and share that employee, we would have more chances for the contractors to be able to come out and get their building inspections instead of having Dwight maybe only available once a week.
well, that would be the advantage. We'd have to work out how we coordinate that. One of you
And the billing.
and the billing and so forth, or the town operations manager would have to coordinate then with Silver Cliff. You know, and it's a good idea, but I don't know if it'd work.
I think it's a good idea.
Just a point of clarity, did this new town operations manager report to Eric?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. Adrian?
I just suggest that you wait on some of these things until you hire that operation manager, so that.
I think, thank you. First things first is, let's go back to Mark's little subcommittee or whatever you want to have, but let's get together with these young ladies and Neil and say, okay, here's, we've talked all around all these different things. Now let's just get it finite, pull out wherever, let's get everything in the mix. That way we know what we have to cover. Okay, and we say, then we, in that same group can reach out to Silvercliff and see if that's a possibility. We may get a no right off the bat. So then we know where we have to go. And then also too, maybe look at, that subcommittee or whatever we want to call it, would, investigate what types of these things that need to be done can be outsourced. Okay, possibly. Okay, is that an option for us as well? And then, right, get it going right away. Because I mean, it's hot, we gotta get working on this thing. Because if we do end up, advertising and trying to get this person, he or she, then we're gonna need time to do that.
We gotta write the job descriptions.
That's right, we gotta know what we're selling.
That's
So
right.
let's look how long it took us to get
When's our next board
town
meeting?
manager,
21st.
you know, a year.
21st of
Yeah.
So
January.
we got a couple weeks.
You got 2 weeks. Yeah, less, we've got like a week and a half.
Why don't we shoot to have our job descriptions done before the next board meeting and have a workshop before it? So we can approve it at the board meeting. Does that make sense?
Yeah, and I have to publish the packet by Thursday, the 16th at the latest, and that's a week away. So if we want it,
And does that include the job descriptions?
yeah, if it's gonna be on the agenda, they should be in the packet.
That's a toughie, that is.
Yeah.
Could you schedule a special meeting at a later date to
We can.
do your job descriptions and go over
I'm going out
those?
of town for a couple of weeks toward the end of the month. I gotta make sure I get those dates right. That's gonna be scheduled around the board meeting, so.
Or if you guys can get it done in a week, I can get it in the packet.
Well, you're gonna have to do Melanie's job description. One requirement that I want out of Melanie's position is no green hair.
It was purple, okay?
I think it's cool.
Thank you, Bob.
Oh, I don't know.
It's not in our handbook, so she can have it.
HR just lost their mind across the nation when you said that.
Any color she wants.
HR person.
I would not recommend bald.
I'll take that advice.
Were you suggesting, did I hear a suggestion that the operations coordinator be able to do building inspections? Because if that's the case, then you're really looking at a building and zoning officer.
Well, I mean, it's.
And other things.
Another thing.
Right, and other things, but I mean, when I think about what you really can't do without, you can't do without a clerk, and you can't do without someone to do your building inspections, whether you're contracting them or borrowing them from Silver Cliff. So that's whoever is gonna do the inspections is pretty important, whether it's a full-time position or part-time. I know back in the day, we did try to work that out with Silver Cliff, and the issue seemed to center around where are they gonna have office space, and I think now we're a lot more mobile in our thinking since COVID. So is it unreasonable that you could have a part-time building inspector that spends 2 days in this office and 2 days in Silver Cliff's office? And if Silver Cliff needs to get in touch with them on Monday and Tuesday, he's here, and vice versa. And it's a 4-day, 4/10s or something. I mean, I think it could definitely be doable.
And does this
If they
new
want to.
person, whatever it
Yeah.
is gonna be, so would Neil be in charge of the parks and roads? Do we want this person to be the supervisor of all that? It seems like last time, we had zoning and, building inspections, and that's why we were advertising for this manager. And somebody that was gonna be able to be head of the parks and roads. Those are the two big things that we wanted. Can we separate that and let Neil be in charge of the roads and parks?
And then he would report to Aaron or report to the coordinator.
To,
I don't think so. I think the operations coordinator would be responsible, Neil would report to that person.
Right.
It just makes
I would
sense
that too.
to me anyway.
Yeah.
Because again, back to like all these DOT records on, you don't wanna mess with them.
we have to include
There's
that.
too many hands it goes through. It goes through whoever's got the license, which is the administrator, right? She gets the reports via email on requirements. I think you sent the one about training requirement. That's for the manager, not for the operator.
Right.
You got streets to plow, grass to mow.
Whoever's doing project management, sometimes, there's so many different types of projects. It may involve streets, it may involve signs and drainage and on and on and on, right? Electric, plumbing, water taps, whatever the case may be. Whoever's doing these planning meetings and project management, there's so much involved that there's, in the past, been so much oversight because they weren't qualified or didn't know about all the things involved on a certain project. So I think whoever's doing that needs to outsource or be part of the operations coordinator, that the operations coordinator is gonna be all encompassing, knowing all the rules, regulations, getting everything involved, signs,
You're the
streets, parks,
implementer.
irrigation.
You're the-
Yeah, and you pointed out ordinance enforcement. Let's not forget that. We better do that.
Well, there's also, the safety requirements that we have to do from CIRSA and from other organizations that have been slipping or not really done too much in the past. That's part of that operations coordinator's job.
There's a lot of that stuff, right?
Yeah. We'll make a quick phone call to find out when I'm gonna leave town.
He's got back. He's got back.
I'm gonna need to know the basis with my wife.
Can't rely on it.
Just like Erin's job, there's so many,
When do we leave?
she has a main job, but then there's so many little bitty jobs underneath that has to be done as well. And you help out as a deputy clerk.
24,
on one of
okay.
those.
All right, thanks, bye. Okay, thanks, bye. Thanks. Okay, I will be here, but I'll be gone from the 24th till the 8th, 9th. So,
So this might be a good time for me to.
yeah, we have an announcement to make here.
So for entirely personal reasons, nothing to do with the town and what's happened, I am resigning my position as a trustee, probably effective tomorrow.
Can we vote on that?
No.
When are you resigning?
And so,
When are you resigning?
tomorrow, today.
Oh.
Hour.
Right now.
He's got his coat on.
No, I say entirely personal things, but I do need to do this. And so as far as the mayor pro tem and everything, then you're gonna have to come up with a new game plan.
Golly gee.
Yeah, George talked to me about this, and I've been thinking about Mayor Pro Tem. And I want to talk to each of you, in terms of what your interests are in doing that job. George has been great, a great right-hand man. We talk a lot about a lot of things. It's easy because he was a block and a half away. I always have to go to his house. for some
That's
reason.
entirely your choice.
You don't shovel your sidewalk, you can't get in there.
Bring out the scotch.
I'm sorry?
Bring out the scotch.
Bring out the
But
scotch.
for the next meeting, you probably want to get on advertising for a new trustee.
Yeah, so we'll do that.
So that needs to.
We'll do that. So,
She's that
but, you know, sorry to see you go. I understand why. And, he's done a great job.
It's been a pleasure to work with everybody.
How about
We
me?
have agreed.
How about working with me? Has that been
It's
a
been
pleasure?
fine. No, it's been fine. We don't argue too much.
Sometimes.
By the way,
And I do have one more comment about, I think that the planning committee and the board of trustees, I think it's a really good idea that we coordinate things more together, and I think that's important.
Yeah, well, I do too, we do have a plan, it is long-term. We should, you know, we sort of have a short, as I said, chronic and acute. The acute comes out of the staff, you know, what do we gotta get done this year, in terms of whatever, plus then the long-term plan is, and what we gotta do, and I don't remember we're looking at it quarterly, which is a good thing to do, but what do we want to achieve in the next 5 years? That might be something we want to talk to the planning committee about in terms of the strategic plan. So what do we want to achieve in the next 5 years? And how are we getting it done? So, okay, but, all right, so here we are, it's almost, well, it's 20 to 11.
But wait a minute, I don't know that, how are we gonna do all this stuff?
Well, that's where I'm going.
Okay, gotcha.
Who's gonna write the job
You're looking at the
description?
clock.
You have to write a job description for Melanie, and that's gonna be responsible with Aaron. We have to write one for Aaron and for this operations coordinator. I think that Mark's got a good run on it, don't you guys?
Oh, yeah,
And he's smarter than all of us.
that's right.
Almost.
And,
He's from England, you know.
yeah, and, railroads and all, you know, they run on time.
Yeah, yeah. My truck's always on time.
A friend that worked for Union Pacific forever, and I said, why don't you do passenger trains? He says, well, we focus on freight, because freight doesn't care when it gets there.
Yeah.
It doesn't bitch, you know, or anything. So,
Yeah, on-train times in England are plus or minus 3 minutes.
yeah.
That's it.
Try it out with Amtrak, it's never.
Plus or minus.
That's American.
Yeah.
Then the
It just
trains
shows
in
up.
France and everything, and it says, and it's there, in
It's
Germany. It's
Yeah,
there.
Germany's like,
All of Europe.
forget
You
about it.
stand right on they say you're gonna be in car, whatever, you stand and, let's say it's A, and that car stops. Your car stops where you're standing.
I don't know who said it, maybe Jerry, about when you have a president, when you have a board and then you have a president, and the president is really supposed to set up how it looks under them. So it seemed that someone, whether that's Mark, should work with Erin about how she's wanting things to be structured. If you guys have really decided that Erin, sounds like it, it sounds like she's game, going to be that administrator person, it would seem like that coordination needs to happen.
I was gonna suggest that, or same thing. In fact, I think there should be at least one other person in on this.
Who would that be?
Another board member, perhaps.
Another board member?
Yeah. I'll
Okay,
do it.
Bob can do it, yeah.
That makes sense to you, Eric?
But I'm never
The
here.
three of us knock it out.
No, this all happened, I think it has to happen right now. And it's not that difficult.
No.
We just sit down, here's what we have. So we want to go down what we already have if we're existing and what the other towns, have. And let's just pick and choose and come up with the two different responsibilities and.
Just make
you-
columns
you-
and put
Exactly, and you're so organized, and so, and you take on what you feel is comfortable taking on, and then same thing with Neil, ask Neil, what all, maybe there's.
So you wanna take a recess then, and just the three of us, four of us, whatever, come back?
I don't think we need to be all together. I think we need, personally, I think, start off with just, either us and you, or us and you type of thing.
I
Okay, because
think you guys need to be all together.
well,
Yeah.
okay. Yeah, you're a busy guy. We're all busy, but.
I mean, she can tell me what she's willing to take
Right,
on,
right.
and then I can revamp the deputy clerk.
Right. I
Job
get it,
description.
and then so what Neil's saying is to, do you want to be part of that kind of stuff, see? In other words,
Well,
Because otherwise, we're emailing back and forth, and, if we're not all
How about I take a shot at these two descriptions, subject then to review,
Right.
input from Neil on his end, input from Melanie to you, or however. And we get together tomorrow or something and just meet.
Yeah, I think we can do it. Just say, Mr. Mayor, just say Mark and me and all five of us, get her done.
Get her done.
Okay, Mark, you and all five of you get her done.
Graphical word chart, it would be very useful to the public, actually,
Okay.
And Adrian,
to see how we do things.
Once it's finished. I
Well,
can-
not only that, organizational chart, but we talked about before, if somebody's out, who's gonna take their spot in their place? So there's probably an alternate for each one as well.
Yeah, like where's the cross training happen?
Like you have who's gonna?
Yeah, who-
You, Mike.
who cross-
Mike, you're-
Mike, I'm training Mike to do everything I do. So
Yeah.
between Mike and I,
There you go.
we work with, the budget, we work with, parts, supplies, what needs done, the complaints department.
You can have all of that.
There you go.
So it seemed like before anybody resigns, they have to give at least a year's notice. How's that?
Yeah, you did.
Yeah. I was gonna say.
After today.
After today, yeah,
That's
after
parting
tomorrow.
shot. Parting.
Well, yeah, we want more than 2 weeks. I remember when Leela Cravens and Mike, what's his last name?
Don Stewart,
Don Stewart, they quit and gave us two weeks notice. Remember that?
it was, that was when I first came on the board. It was like,
Yeah.
Yikes.
Well, they were pissed off at it because we wouldn't allow them to smoke in City Hall.
That's right.
Anyway.
That was the old.
That was right when the federal government had banned smoking in all federal buildings. But, and then there was like a whole thing about, but this is a local town government and we should be allowed, and it was ugly, and they quit.
How does the replacement trustee get,
They apply, people can apply,
and then who decides?
the board, we'll interview them. And our process has been, they apply by letter, we have to give notification, she's gonna do that. You get that in the paper right away, and then they apply. And I don't know how long it stays open, 2 weeks?
So
10 days?
you guys have 60 days from
Phil.
the official resignation date to fill it. If you don't get any letters of intent, then I have to run a special election,
Yeah.
which is
So try hard.
not ideal and expensive. So
So are you gonna put in the paper for 10 days or 14 days?
I'll probably do 14 days.
2
I'll
weeks.
put it on our website, put it in the paper, give it to Tabitha to put on Facebook. And then hopefully we
Oh, boy.
get someone in 60
Just
days.
letters of interest, and then after you get the letters of interest, then the board will interview like you did for planning commission?
Yeah,
Just so you have to.
and then when they decide, then it'll have to be an agenda item to appoint.
I remember being interviewed.
I was interviewed.
You were in
a couple times.
Do you have a form for a letter of interest? Sounds like he's interested, maybe he can just fill that out, get started.
I'm not a
Yeah.
full-time resident, I haven't been here long enough to qualify.
I'd be here a
You have
year.
to be here a year and live in town limits, out in the county.
That should be.
Don't you usually just have, with planning commission, we just had to write a letter of interest.
That's
and
all,
submit
That's
it.
all.
yeah, there's not like a formal
Just throw your name in the hat.
application.
Right.
I've got the
You know,
ad.
if you do, if,
Paper.
you know, anybody who applies for that job or to be on the board, anybody who does that should, I would, if it was me, I would include my resume. You know, why I'm qualified to do this job, but be that as it may.
I mean, I can put that in the ad.
Yeah.
If you want it in there, Paul.
I think
That helps us, weed out.
I think the pro temp should be somebody that's already here on the board. They know what's going on. They would be easier, more qualified to step in and
Well, and that's,
act as your.
it'll be one of these gentlemen here, who's mayor pro tem, and the mayor picks it. I don't think we have anything in our ordinances. I've always done that. And,
I just read that last night. Yeah, the mayor pro tem is picked that name.
Here, more to get a new trustee.
yeah, and the new trustee will be something that goes public, and then, but the selection of somebody who's mayor pro tem, or somebody who's already here.
You do that right away.
I can do that.
Mark.
I'll
So
probably.
your concern was having somebody
I
new being pro
want
tem.
to talk to each of you
Right.
guys individually, so.
I'm busy.
George,
Busy?
is this your official resignation date, George, or are you
Okay.
gonna do it?
So, are we
I
done
will
with
send
it?
you a, let's send you a letter.
Are you
No,
gonna, so you're
just
not gonna be at
us.
the January
No.
meeting? Okay.
You should write a letter.
Yeah,
I will.
Yeah.
To Aaron.
To the
To
trustees.
the
To the board of
trustees.
Board of
trustees.
trustees.
I will do that today.
I quit, that's all it needs to be.
You want me to make, write it down.
So,
No, I'll think about it. How am I gonna
Oh, you
say
still
this?
think, oh, you still think, you hadn't quit?
No, how am I gonna word it? This is-
7 of us left Unisys at one time, all 7 of us.
Kind of what Florence did
all
last.
right, so, is there anything else to come up? So Mark is gonna work with Bob on the resumes, or on the, job
The
descriptions.
team,
I'm sorry?
yeah, Mark and Bob are, work with our team.
Our
These
team
three.
and, so, and you'll do that before the next week?
I think when we're done here, if we can pick a date to meet in the near future.
Yeah, I
Okay,
mean, tomorrow or Friday, this afternoon, I've got the community foundation meeting, so.
Figure it out.
okay. John, where you going? You're not dismissed?
I'm calling this meeting adjourned.
You can still do that.
Okay.
Go to Portsmouth.
He's like me, he just leaves stuff.
I know, Irish exit.
I'm really happy it turned out well, and this is kind of what always gotta have somebody
Okay.
to be the leader in his final decision, so everybody knows where to go. If I'm working with Neil and I've just tried for 2 months and Neil just refuses to hear me or help or whatever, and I still feel it, then I can go to Aaron, and Aaron doesn't do it, then I can go to the mayor.
Then that's when we get rid of you.
That's right. It took you a while, but no.
Okay,
I've had a lot of people work.
if there's nothing more to come before the group regarding this matter, then we'll adjourn.
Okay.
And, then you can go, I'd like to talk to Chuck and Bob.